Welcome to Olympian Water Testing, giving you the best in water analysis. Today we're looking at AWA, American Water Works Association, and we're looking at water science at a study for school and childcare center drinking water. What is the question they have? Copper chemistry, health effects, and occurrence in remediation. So, simply, what is going on with the risks of elevated copper at U.S. schools? We talk about this a lot for multiple reasons. One is that a lot of people don't think about copper as being toxic or even think about copper in general when they think of heavy metals. They may think of lead, arsenic, and mercury, which are ones to definitely test for, but copper sometimes evades people's minds and it can cause gastrointestinal issues, liver damage, kidney damage. Also, problem is some schools are not testing at all. They're not testing their water, even when the water turns different colors or there's a problem. So it's a good idea to have a study about this. It's a good idea to always take a look at the information. So the study goal was to better understand the risks of elevated copper levels at U.S. schools and child cares and copper health effects, chemistry, occurrence, and remediation. Of more than the 98,000 schools, 500,000 child care centers, only 0.2% had copper water testing data in the Federal Safe Drinking Water Information System database. So you have to think of that. That's a huge number of child care centers. That's a huge number of schools. Millions of students, and only 0.2% is being looked at, is being tested. That's very dangerous. Even if everything's fine, if they're not testing the water, you just don't know. The facilities designated public water systems had about 13% reported an exceedance, and schools that were not designed, a public water system PWS, also had exceedances. Few students document levels in schools and child care centers, and widely different sampling and remedial actions were reported. Now, flushing contaminated water was the most evaluated remedial action, but was unreliable because copper quickly rebounded when flushing stopped. So a lot of people will say, well, I'll just flush the water out and we'll be good. That's a very temporary solution. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a huge wound. You might be able to stop a little bit of bleeding, but it's not a long-term solution. It needs to be tested and fixed. So the health risk was difficult to determine. Now they also have the information here. Hydration is critical to child development, and it's critical to all of us. Water is our most ubiquitous resource, and children are fundamentally dependent on safe drinking water for cognitive and physical health. And they're more susceptible to dehydration than adults, and children depend on adults for hydration. We need to make sure the water is safe for children. In the United States, school and child care centers are either a customer of public water systems or an institution is themselves federally regulated because it produces drinking water from their own water supply source for more than 25 people, more than 60 days per year. And approximately 8,000 schools and child care facilities are public water systems under the Safe Drinking Water Act. And they also estimate that other school and child care centers, approximately 98.7%, approximately 98,000, and 500,000 respectively, are not regulated under the Safe Water Drinking Act. And that's quite alarming. Very few schools and child care centers own a PWS, and some of them have an independent well supply, and they need to comply with federal LCR requirements. And the big issue here is there are so many schools, there's so many child care facilities that are not testing, that don't know what's in their water. And the authors reviewed the peer and reviewed the gray literature and found that federal and state government resources, as well as reports by the U.S. National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Mathematics, keywords used during a search include copper, school, copper corrosion, drinking water, and copper health. And databases were primarily the Web of Science and Google Scholar, and very few water testing studies were found for U.S. schools. So the literature search was expanded to other countries, U.S. and federal state regulations, as well as school water sampling results examined in this review were found available on local state government websites. In short, we know that copper can cause a lot of chronic health issues, but the main issue is nobody is testing for this in schools and child care facilities. Nobody's looking at the data, so they don't know what the data is. Even if all the water sources were safe, we don't know, because there's no 100% way to know, unless it's periodically tested. So to keep children safe, and definitely if we can gather anything from the study, is that there needs to be periodic testing on water for elevated levels of copper.